Welcome to Digital Nation, your weekly medley of the best of local TV from across the UK. From preserving the past to protecting the future, we bring you stories you don't normally see anywhere else. This week, Sweet but Stinky, the new arrivals making their mark on the farm. The astonishing power of music on babies. And a novel taste for the good old British sausage. And don't forget to tell us what you think. Get in touch on Twitter with the hashtag #DigitalNation. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and in the fast-moving world of news, an image can make or break a story. In Edinburgh, an exhibition of the most striking press pictures of the last year gives visitors a chance to look at the world's biggest news stories through the photographer's lens.
It's a real honour to put this exhibition together because I try to give every photo the attention it deserves and the best spot it deserves. Every photo that we see, for the visitor, it's maybe you only see the picture, but you don't see the whole story behind it, and that's what we want to show with this exhibition.
It just shows you the power of the image, no words, no numbers, just a picture, and yet it captures all your senses and it lets you know what's been happening in our world.
I'd heard about this train track and I was very interested in it, so I made my way down there. I'd spent 5 nights photographing here. I found a couple of hundred refugees in an apple orchard, and I walked up to them with my cameras out. They were very anti-camera at the time. There were 6, engineers there, checking the fence line out to see what they could do, because there were 2 options, the fence line or perhaps the unofficial border that the Hungarians had set up. There was about 50 of them left, and the police turned up because the police were patrolling the fences. We all had to lay down in this very little grassy patch, which was about 25 metres from the fence, a ditch separating us from the police and the fence line. As soon as the police left, the engineers went straight back into that fence line again and called everyone, quick, 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 quick. I ran down the ditch as they did. They told me to stay out of the way. As my respect to them, I did, and I managed to take this picture. You can clearly see the image. It's very grainy, very soft. The reason it's like that is because I was unable to use a flash. Had I used a flash, I would have been either lynched by the refugees, or I would have had every policeman standing there on the fence line, and they would never have gone through. That's a lot of courage for a man at 3 o'clock in the morning to take a baby and not have any belongings, but he's that child.
To Norwich now, where 10-year-old Maisie received a hero's welcome on returning to school. The little girl had been absent for months after being diagnosed with a brain tumour, but her fighting spirit has inspired her classmates, and they're now trying to help Maisie's family deal with the impact of her illness.
Returning to school for the first time in 7 months, and to a hero's welcome. 10-year-old Maisie Lossor was diagnosed with a brain tumour in January this year, a condition that's left her unable to walk, talk or breathe properly. Her parents, Dawn and Daryl, first noticed something was wrong in November when Maisie started to see double and developed an eye slant.
Our world fell apart the day that he told us that she had a brain tumour, because it's not what we were expecting. We thought she might have a trapped nerve, and that's why we'd taken her to the doctors in the first place.
Back in February, she underwent major surgery and had 80% of the tumour, who she'd already nicknamed Bob the Blob, removed. And she's now on the road to recovery.
The way she's got us through every day, she's unbelievable.
It's not just her family, though, that are proud of her attitude. It's her school too. And the proceeds of Bignell Primary's fate are being donated to help Dawn and Daryl make life at home easier for Maisie. They launched a crowdfunding page to buy specialist equipment, and in just over a week, they've raised more than £3,500 of their £5,000 target.
Actually, as we pulled in the car park, I think my husband and I started crying. Maisie had started crying before we even got out the back of the taxi. When the school first mentioned about doing it, we thought they might do a little bit of a collection, but to find out they were dedicating the whole day to Maisie was pretty inspirational.
The whole family have kept us in the loop the whole time about how things are going. I know members of staff have gone and visited Maisie in hospital, her friends have gone and visited her, but her coming here today, everybody's seeing that, and seeing what a brave young lady she is very, very special.
Maisie is slowly learning to use her limbs and to talk again, but they still don't know if she'll manage to walk in the future. For now, they're just happy to have her back at home. The girl that smiled in the face of adversity.
Over in Manchester, some new residents of a farm have been kicking up a stink. A grand total of 12 baby skunks have been born, and they're delighting keepers and visitors alike. These funky furries are as sweet as they are smelly, but it'll take someone braver than me to rehome them.
The animal enclosure has taken on the role of looking after 3 adult skunks and their 12 adorable babies.
We have 12 babies altogether. We're presuming they're from 2 different litters from the 2 mums, because they normally only have litters between 5 and 9.
The baby skunks are only a few weeks old and they are attracting a lot of attention. A baby skunk is known as a kit, and they usually have 2 white stripes down their back. Skunks are usually shy animals, but if they feel threatened, they will spray.
They only will spray you when they feel frightened or stressed or worried. At this age, they're very good, and they're used to being handled, so they're not going to spray us, hopefully, as they're so well handled. So if they do spray you, it absolutely stinks. It's terrible. To describe it, probably the worst smelling rotten fruit that you could think of, and worse than that probably. It's terrible, it really is terrible.
The babies haven't developed the gland which produces the offensive odour, which means they can be handled by those visiting the farm.
They're very easy to look after. They do make smelly poos, but we clean them out every day, make sure they have plenty of food and water every day, treat them in the hot weather with ice lollies and things like that. But they do love mealworms and insects and crickets and things like that. To love stuff to crunch on, as well as all the juicy stuff as well.
We all need a friend sometimes, but it's a whole lot worse if you haven't got a pal in the school playground. And in Belfast, they're not sitting around doing nothing. The school has come up with an ingenious idea to help lonely pupils make friends if they feel left out.
This is Sacred Heart Primary School, and we're located in North Belfast. We are an all-boys school, and we're in an area of high social deprivation, but we're constantly looking at new ideas and new elements for the boys to try out, and some of those ideas may come from the boys, where we would put out a questionnaire and we would ask them what do they feel like, what would they like to do, and we try to facilitate that.
That is the buddy bench, and it is for people who feel left out. When somebody sees somebody else on the buddy bench, they go over and they ask, would you like to play with me?
I've witnessed it happen. Someone would come along and see if they wanted to play their game, and it usually ends up happening. Once I was playing chases and I saw someone sitting there, and I asked them if they wanted to come play, and they said yes, and I felt very good about it.
I was feeling a bit left out. I didn't really want to play the games that the other people were playing. And a group of P4s came along and asked me if I wanted to play, and I said yes. It's a bit rude to say no, isn't it?
Let's bounce to Glasgow and meet a footballing phenomenon who'll make you feel like you've got 2 left feet. Freestyler Gavin McKinney can't afford to drop the ball as he challenges himself to travel across the city without letting his football touch the ground. Keep up!
Unlike football, with freestyle it's just me and the ball, and the city is my pitch. I reckon I could get across the city without dropping the ball. Ever since I was about 5 years old, I've been playing football. Then I started freestyle when I was 14, carried on playing until I was 18, and now I just concentrate on freestyle. was a sport before, but there was hardly anyone that done it, and then YouTube and like Instagram and stuff made it take off. Into loads of competitions around Europe, like the World Championships is in Prague. So I train 6 days a week, and I'll train roughly for about an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. Yeah, this is my full-time job. Yeah, a lot of people say it's like art because it's not really like football or anything like that, 'cause it's just you and the ball basically. A mix between sport and your personality. It allows me to express myself in different ways that I wouldn't have found out about before.
Well, that brings us to the end of part 1, which means it's time for the quiz. Around which city was the first section of motorway in the UK built? Was it A, Leeds, B, Preston, or C, Portsmouth? Drive safely and stay tuned to find out after the break. Welcome back to Digital Nation. Before the break, we asked you around which city the first section of motorway in the UK was built. And the answer is B. The M6 Preston bypass, constructed in 1958, was the first British road to be built to motorway standards. So let's get in our cars now and drive to Nottingham, where a pioneering project is hoping to make sure that the memories of survivors of the Holocaust are kept alive for years to come. The idea is to get survivors to record their memories so that future generations can ask them anything.
I was arrested at the age of 5 at my preschool in Amsterdam. My sister was arrested by the Nazis at the ripe old age of 1. Obviously, she was a huge danger to the Nazi Empire. We were both sent to a prison camp in the Netherlands, where the first thing I was told was not to go anywhere near the barbed wire because the soldiers in the watchtowers would shoot me dead.
Stories like Martin's are an important reminder of a part of our history which shaped the way we live today.
Some of these survivors now, due to their age, their health, can possibly only come and speak once, maybe twice a year. So we're at a really crucial point where we don't know how much longer we'll have the benefit of survivors speaking to us. So it's crucial we capture it at this point.
The Forever Project is a 3D interactive programme that will preserve the voice of Holocaust survivors. It uses advanced digital technologies that lets you not only hear and see a survivor sharing their story, but also allows you to ask that survivor questions.
It's important to know one's history in order not to repeat it, but there is more to it. People have got to understand why these things happen, the fact that they happen much more than they realise. It's not only about Jews.
Schools visit this centre every day to hear the first-hand account of what happened during the Second World War.
I think it's really important that we keep hearing these stories because you can remember it all the time, and it's not something you want to forget because it's something you want to make sure it never happens again.
This stage of the project is almost complete, and by October you will be able to come and ask the digital versions of the survivors anything.
From the Grand Old Duke of York to the wheels on the bus, we all remember tunes from when we were children. But it turns out that playing melodies to young ones is more than just good fun. Let's head to Cardiff and drop in on a musical group for babies.
Gather your nectar, So I ran classes from 0 to 6 months is my first class, up to the age of 7. We listen to different genres. Sometimes it's classical, sometimes it's jazz, sometimes it's world music. We're really trying to expose the children and also the parents, actually, to just the wonderful art and expression of music. I've been running classes for 6 years now, and it is astonishing how the cello and its vibration really settles the babies. And they can be in a class of 45 minutes and they're very still. They seem to absolutely love it. And then as we've gone on, I think it's partly the visual with the cello that captures their imagination, because obviously they haven't seen that before maybe, and it's a very physical instrument. The sound for the cello is a beautifully deep, unique sound.
Over to Cambridge now, where one man is taking on the challenge of trying all the Olympic sports in the run-up to the Games in Rio. Difficult enough, you might think, but John Willis was born with a disability. He missed out on playing sports growing up. He's now determined that other disabled people won't face the same constraints.
Aiming to prove anyone can do it, John Willis is attempting 34 Olympic and Paralympic events in the build-up to Rio, to show there should be no barriers to playing sport.
When I was young, I was actually sat on the side when my friends were playing sport, and I realised more recently that I could actually participate, and so therefore I was encouraged and inspired to actually make it available for the next generation, and hopefully kids who I can encourage to do sport with disabled kids, or disabled kids to do it with non-disabled kids.
John is trying everything from archery to rugby, gymnastics to even diving, and is doing so to raise money for his charity Power to Inspire.
Power to Inspire I set up 2.5 years ago to help inclusion through sport, primarily getting disabled and non-disabled people to do sport together.
But how does the hammer compare to the other sports John has tried?
Well, the hammer does actually offer one advantage in that I don't have to use any prosthetic stuff. But I didn't realise quite how technically demanding it is. Apparently it's been described as the ballet of the athletics track and field events, and I can see it because actually it's all about moving your feet, and I hadn't thought of that, so I'm going to have to get used to the idea of dancing around the circle. But it's great fun, actually much more fun and much more challenging than I thought it would be.
For everything, there is a first time. So while Comic-Cons have been going for years, 2016 was the first time that stars and fans of fantasy and sci-fi communed in the Oxfordshire town of Didcot. And if it's anything to go by, it looks like Comic-Cons will live long and prosper. Ready, are you?
Comic-Con is an event you've probably heard of, but maybe you're not too sure exactly what it's about. Well, it all started in San Diego back in 1970, where science fiction fans put on a comic book convention.
It is a gathering of people who are into comic books, movies, anime, manga, gaming, and just anything geek. We've got a range of panellists that involve actors, writers, authors, comic book artists, and then we have the stores where everyone can buy all their figurines and collectibles.
Along with being able to get your hands on a lot of comic book stash, Comic-Con is also known for having Q&As with characters from the fantasy world.
I played Sergeant John Benton in unit for 7 years in Doctor Who, opposite the first 3 Doctors. And the fortunate thing for me is that my character became very popular because I supported the Doctor every week.
I played Red 12 in Star Wars. So, very lucky, privileged. Someone actually said to me, John, why were you wearing a wig in that film? I said that was 1976. We all had our hair like that.
I caught up with 2 cosplayers to find out more about the dress-up side of Comic-Con.
I started off 6 years ago attending them. You learn a lot. Before, I had no idea how people made armoured costumes. It's a lot more simple.
If it wasn't for comic book artists and movie makers, we wouldn't do what we do. We're just fans.
Yeah.
But what is the best thing about Comic-Con?
And I can literally just come out my shell when you're coming in costume. You can be whoever you want to be, so that's the best part.
It's about having fun. It's a family fun day, isn't it? You bring your children out, and comics are great, getting young children to start reading in schools, but dressing up as these characters here, look, it's all harmless good fun, isn't it?
I just love making the costumes, so I'd be doing this in my living room if I wasn't at a Comic-Con.
All in all, I think science fiction's good. It expands the mind, broadens your horizons, and of course, really, Doctor Who, the reason Doctor Who's so popular is it's because it's good over evil.
Still to come, sausages galore, but first, chop chop, it's Creative Kingdom.
If you thought the guillotine was a French invention, you must be right off your head. If you're looking for the true home of the shortest back and sides, you need to go right back to the 13th century and the Halifax gibbet. It stood 15 feet high with a 7-pound blade, and if you were caught nicking anything over 13.5p, you were given the opportunity to try it out, usually on market day. There were loads of these things all over Yorkshire back in the day, but the Halifax gibbet carried on chopping long after other places packed it in, right up until Oliver Cromwell gave it the axe in 1650. Nearly 140 years before the French Revolution. Proof once again that when it comes to creativity, innovation, and being top of the chops, in Halifax Mint.
There's nothing like a full English breakfast, but the traditional dish can be a bit of a faff to make. What with grilling bacon, cooking eggs, heating beans and frying mushrooms, never mind the washing up. So what if you could have all of these delicacies in one handy wrapper? Well, in Lancashire, you now can.
Now, they say the simplest ideas are the best, so if you like a full English breakfast and also sausages, why not combine them both? That's the new idea made into reality by John Hutchinson.
That came from me feeling a little bit worse for wear one morning and having a full English breakfast. I'm not a big fan of washing up like most blokes, I think, and decided that, maybe try and put everything in one sausage. It's got fresh mushrooms, fresh tomatoes, black pudding, Lancashire black pudding obviously, bacon cut up into strips in a pork sausage. I was working while I was at school at a butcher's in Skipton, and I made sausage then. And I always like to add things to make a different sort of flavour. Rather than using packet mixes, just add the fresh ingredients like pork and leek.
Perhaps the idea is catching on because people like something unique rather than mass-produced food.
Because I think people are a bit sceptical at first because it sounds so bizarre. It's really taking off and people seem to love the idea and find it quite funny, really.
And people are coming from far and wide to experience the sausage flavour sensation.
I've come all the way from Bradford to try the local sausage. I've heard they're quite nice.
Come from Con just about to see what they're like. Can't wait to try them. Love the English breakfast. It saves out washing up, I suppose, doesn't it? Just having them in a sausage.
Have you tried the all-day breakfast sausage?
Oh, yes, I have. And it's pretty tasty. It's amazing.
Like every new product, John is keeping his recipe and methods very private. He may have to take out a copyright on his invention.
My recipes are unique, I think that's the key, so other people can try and copy, but they won't get them the same. I use all fresh ingredients, which a lot of butchers don't have time for.
Well, the proof of the pudding, or the sausage, is very much in the eating, so let's have a go. Well, I'm getting baked beans, I'm getting black pudding, it's great.
That's all we have time for on this week's trip through the best of local TV. If you've enjoyed watching, you can find previous episodes at bbc.co.uk/digitalnation. Or why not take a look at your local TV station's website. But until next time, that's all from me. Bye!